However, on the 2nd of May, Hanneman died due to liver failure in a local hospital near his home in Southern California. The cause of death was later determined to be alcohol-related cirrhosis. The band would carry on. They continue with his spirit still here, basically. However, Araya felt a little more uncertain about the band's future at the time. He basically said that it would be like starting over again, and he doubted whether the Slayer fans would approve of a change, such a drastic change. And also, to anyone in the chat or anyone watching this after the fact, if you were around at the time and you remember at the time, what was the main reaction, and also to you, John, as well, what was the big reaction around this at the time? Because this must have been, I mean, for me at the time, I didn't even know who Slayer was. I was 13. I was just about getting into this stuff, so I didn't even know who Slayer was. So that, when I heard that Jeff Hanneman passed away, didn't really mean anything to me at the time because I didn't know the band. My dad obviously was quite gutted because, you know, he'd been a massive Slayer fan since the 80s, but I want to get a little bit of a perspective on that from someone who was there at the time.
Yeah, I remember it was something that was talked about a lot in the metal community. I wasn't around this time, I wasn't really into Slayer, but I remember reading about it, people talking about it. But it was it was like a big loss because I think with him dying, it's kind of like, when a major member of a band like Slayer would die, it's kind of like when a member of like Metallica dies, kind of. It's really a big thing. So I think this kind of like led to them just doing one more album and then calling it quits. I know you're going to talk about Repentless, but
yeah, that's quite interesting. I didn't really think about it that way because I mean, we're going to get into it a little bit after this, but like, I wonder if at that point then maybe they had the little inkling of like maybe a couple more years and then we might call it a day. Potentially, you don't know how much of an impact it really had on them. Since the band's retirement, there's been quite a few rumblings about a potential reunion, about a potential, comeback. Kerry King stating a couple of times that he's had material that is ready to go, and also he recently had a new guitar endorsement with Dean Guitars. And also in 2021, King stated that perhaps Slayer retired too early. That was on the Machine Head 30th anniversary thing. A load of musicians, including Kerry King, sort of congratulated Machine Head on their 30th anniversary. And Kerry King basically come out and said it straight. He said that we retired too early. We got to 30 years and then we carried on and then stopped, and we really should have carried on. So that kind of sparked a little bit of a debate, thinking whether Slayer are going to come back or not. And I think it would be a perfect way to sort of end this stream, have a bit of a discussion, talking about whether we think Slayer might return in some form in the future. We'll get the chat to make their decision as well. If anyone in the chat, or if you're watching this after the fact, because I'll link this I'll clip this up for anyone watching this after the fact, whether you think Slayer might return. So I'm going to start with John to give his 2 cents on this.
Yeah, as far as I know, I think they're done. I don't think like they're not going to get together. From what I've been reading online, it appears that Tom Araya just has no interest in just getting back together or anything like that. What I would think it would be a good idea for Kerry King to get together a new band. Maybe Kerry King and Paul Bostaph can get together, and maybe Dave Lombardo. Don't call it Slayer, because it's just gonna turn into this whole big thing that it's like they're carrying on, and that's not the whole Slayer. I mean, just avoid that. Come up with a whole new name, and they should just put together a new band, play some thrash, play the same style, and just move on. I think that's how these guys are gonna continue, because I'm trying to read online. I'm seeing Kerry King didn't like after Slayer. He didn't really. I don't see him doing anything. There were like a couple of things here and there. Like he did one guitar solo for the band Witchery. He was in that movie Studio 666. He had a short acting part, but I think it would be cool. He should really put a band together and come up with a new name. I mean, he can call it something similar to Slayer. I mean, he can call it Hell Awaits or whatever he wants to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I wouldn't call it Slayer, because then
not KK Slayer.
No,
not KK Slayer.
That sounds cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, because you think of the band. There's a band. What's that band from Dio called Last in Line? I mean, they're like ex-members of Dio. That's a good band, and they're like, they're not taking over the Dio name. They're just going Last in Line. They're like naming it after one of their albums. I think that's cool. So he should make a band, name it after a Slayer album. You can call it Rain and Blood, whatever he wants to call it. And I think it would be like a really awesome. But yeah, because I was gonna go to that comment, but
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's gonna turn into like another one of those things like the whole Pantera reunion, where like
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. So so Mikey said this. They should just do a few shows, meaning a few venues. Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, Trev, that's exactly what I was going for. KK Slayer, like KK's Priest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah. I remember Trev's rant on KK's Priest. Oh god, the War Ensemble. Yeah, that's not bad.
That would be cool. Yeah,
that ain't bad. I think that's pretty cool, man. Yeah. Okay. So what I was basically thinking about this is that, similar to what Mikey just said there, I think they could probably come back and do a couple of shows, but I don't think it'll be with Tom. I think even if they did that, Kerry King gets Dave Lombardo or Paul Bostaph to come in and do the drums, gets Gary Holt to do the guitars. I don't think he's going to be able to get Tom. It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters whatever he says. I don't think Tom is ever going to step foot on a stage ever again. And as sad as that is, but I mean, he's pretty happy with his life, looking after his family, sort of stepping away from the limelight of being a famous musician. He's happy doing that, and that's fair enough. You can't really hold that against him, really. So then I was kind of thinking to myself, if they were going to get like other people to come in and almost like mimic Tom, I was thinking who would be the best person you can get to come in and bring like spirit of Tom without being Tom. So, I was trying to think of like vocalists and that, but his vocal style is so distinctive. It's like it would be so hard to replicate. So the only person that I could think of that would make sense is David Sanchez from Havoc. And if anyone out there knows the band Havoc, there's a song off Time Is Up called DOA, and towards the end of the song, David Sanchez does this Tom Araya-esque Angel of Death scream, and it sounds as close as you can get it, you know, without it being like AI controlled or whatever. So, you know,
Cool.
and I've thought, you know what? And then he does this vocal style that sounds very similar to Tom. Sounded, I mean, it wasn't exact, obviously, but probably the closest as you would get. And because he plays guitar as well, it would make sense for him to switch over and play bass in Slayer and do the vocals. So that was my big theory. You know, if they were to do it, get him. Although another possibility I was thinking, if you wanted to just get a bass player and a vocalist, you could always get Rex Brown. But I was thinking David Sanchez. I thought that would be cool. But if they did that, I don't think they'd come back and do an album. I think it'd just be a couple of tours or whatever, or just a couple of shows. But I think what's more likely is what you said, John, a new Kerry King band, possibly featuring the artists that I've said. You know, I know there was a lot of talk in 2021 and 2022. There was a lot of talk that Kerry King wanted to get a band with Gary Holt, Paul Bostaff, and Phil Anselmo.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that might be quite cool if they did like a groovy, thrashy kind of style, obviously with Phil Anselmo's vocals. I was thinking, you know, I'd be down for that. I think that'd be really cool if they did something like that. I think that seems more likely to me than a proper Slayer reunion, unfortunately. But you know, that's it. That's pretty much all I had to say on that. I'm just going to go through some of the comments. Trevor's not happy with my. Trevor's not happy. That one scream. It's close, but the dude replacing Tom, no. Okay, fair enough. Well, you listened to my argument, so that's fair enough. Kerry King with a new band. It's a far better idea. Yeah. Singer who's unknown. That's an interesting one. Yeah. Although, to be fair, I think if they did a Slayer thing, you wouldn't really be replacing Tom. It's like someone coming in and doing the best imitation. It's like the Pantera thing where they've got Charlie Benente and Zach Wilde. They're not really replacing the Abbotts. They're just, you know, they're just doing their best imitation to serve the band. You know, it's basically gonna be that all over again, isn't it? If Slayer did come back without Tom and Jeff, it would basically be like the Pantera thing all over again. And I don't think the internet would be able to cope with that. Oh, man.